Okay guys, so the next thing we want to do is, instead of using JavaScript alerts, let's actually make things more fancy and more interactive, because it's going to be very dull for users coming to check definitions using JavaScript alerts saying localhost says this, that. It's not going to make more sense. So I decided that we should use Bootstrap Modal, more fancy modal, and you can also add some spinner effects to make this look a little bit lively instead of these boring localhost says. So guys, what I'm going to do is to come over to the Bootstrap and say Bootstrap Modal, and let's say Bootstrap 5, I suppose, because I'm using Bootstrap 5, Bootstrap 5.2 Modal, and I'm just going to tap enter. All right. So guys, I'm going to click on, I suppose, let's see, I should click on the first link, getbootstrap.com. Okay. And now let me show you a proper function of the modal. Okay, for example, now when I click on, let's try the live demo. When I click on this, nice, you can see this is awesome. This is exactly what we want. We want that anytime we get a response from our PHP file, that's our process.php, it should come out this way, like this, instead of that annoying alert that you can find here. So it should always come out this way, so like this, slick. All right, so let's see how we can integrate this, and let's start by copying this code. Let's copy this code, right? So all we need to do is come over here and copy to clipboard, and come over here and open our index.php, right? Because that's where we actually want to integrate this. Then let's come over to the top section, yes, to the top section, and just before this div class, and let's paste that code we copied, Ctrl V. All right, then let me just format this nicely, and this is it. And let's Ctrl S and let's see what's going to happen. So I'm just going to come over here and refresh, and let's see what's going to happen. So you can see once I click on launch demo, and boom, we have it there. Nice. But now we don't want this button, right? So we're going to take away this button, and we are going to initialize our own operation in such a way that the moment we click on this, make a search, it's going to trigger this alert here, or it's going to trigger this modal here. The moment we click on this button here, it will trigger this modal instead of this button. Now we'll be using this button to trigger our modal. All right, so now let's see how we can achieve that. And I'm going to first of all delete this button. We don't need it, right? Let's delete it, or you can comment it out, whatever, but we don't just need it. All right, so when I do that, I control refresh, or I control R, that is refresh, and let's see, the button is gone, right? But now how do we trigger this modal now? Because you can see once I type in this and I say read, or let's say red, or let's say air, and I make a search, nothing is going to happen. Where is our modal? All right, let's see how we can bring our modal up into play. All right, the next thing I want to do is actually give it an ID, and let's call it search modal. Search. Search. What's the spelling of search? Okay, search modal. All right, so I'm going to give this search modal, and what I want to do next, again, before that, I want to let me not take away the button yet, because I still want to tweak this modal a bit. So I'm just going to Ctrl Z. All right, so let's tweak this modal a bit. Let's refresh. Nice. And let's come over here. When we click on launch demo, this is it, right? But now we want a modal that comes from the center, or it's vertically and horizontally aligned. That's in the center here, and then we don't want it coming from the top. It's not going to make more sense. It should come from the center, and we should add like a scrollable feature to it. So whenever we pass in a very massive data, or we get a massive definition from our API, it's going to be able to allow us to scroll, right? So let's see how we can achieve that. So we can still come back to the modal, that's the Bootstrap modal, and let's scroll down. You can see, let's start with vertically centered. Yes, let's try vertically centered. So when you click it, you can see this is nice, right? And you can see it's coming from the center now, not from the top like before. And we have vertically centered scrollable modal. This is it. This is what we want exactly. So in such a way that when we click it, so if we have a long content, you can see just like this, we have a long content, automatically it brings out this scrollable function. So we don't have to, scroll down manually. Yeah. So I'm just going to close this. And how do we integrate this? What we need to do is just to copy this class. You can see add.modal dialog center to modal dialog to vertically center this modal. So what this means is I'm just going to copy this entire class here, Ctrl C, and I'm just going to come over here, and this is modal dialog. Where is it? Modal dialog. All right, then I'm just going to replace it here and Ctrl V, modal dialog, and Ctrl S, and let's see what's going to happen. So guys, I'm going to come over to my page and I'm going to refresh this ASAP, and let's see what's going to happen. So when I click on the launch demo modal, nice, you can see we have that effect right in our project. And when I close this, okay, let's see if we have the scrollable effect, right? Let's see that. And how do we test that? So in the modal body, let me just pass in some dummy words. I'm just going to pass in a paragraph, and I'm going to say lorem 400. And let's see what's going to happen. Lorem 400, that's 400 dummy words of lorem. And I'm teaching you guys my trick one by one. And let's go over here and refresh. Ctrl+R. And now let's launch demo try again. Launch. Nice. So you can see if we have a lot of definitions coming from our dictionary API, right? So whenever we have a lot of definition coming from our dictionary API that can't fit into this modal, what it does next is to actually create a scrollable function like this, or if this scrollable what do you call it? Yeah, a scrollable stuff like this. Nice. All right, so this is exactly what we want, and I'm just going to close this now. So since we already have what we want, so that done, I'm just going to Ctrl Z. I don't want that again, and these two, I don't want these two. Ctrl S, and let's just leave it as before, the dot dot dot. All right, so now what I'm going to do next is to take away this trigger button, and let's use JavaScript. Let's use JavaScript to trigger this now. All right, I'm going to Ctrl R, and let's see what's going to happen. It's gone, right? So how do we then now trigger this? How do we then trigger this, right? Very, very simple. First of all, let's not forget to change this and assign our own ID to it. And let's say search modal. All right, search modal, just like this. And let's see what else do we want. Okay, let's start with this first, and let's grab this ID and come over to our dictionary.js, and let's see what we can do with it. So now let's say, okay, on success, what should happen? On success, what should happen? Now on success, we want to do some things, and what should that be? I want to be able to grab this ID and display that modal. And how do I do that? I'm just going to say this. All right, I'm just going to have my $sign and say this, and what's the name of that function? Let me just use a double quote. We should not use this. Instead, let's just take away this. Rather, that was a mistake, and just use the query selector here. I suppose that's it, or that $sign, and I'm just going to pass in what am I going to pass in? Let's come over to our index.php, and I'm just going to grab this ID, right? And I'm going to come over here, and since it's an ID, it's going to have an hash, right? Is it an hash? Yes, an hash before it. Then Ctrl V. Okay, and I'm going to say dot modal, and inside the modal I'm going to pass in show, right? Like this. Let's just use a single quote. Sorry about that, I can't see my keyboard clearly. All right, show, and Ctrl S, and let's see what's going to happen. That's to say, whenever we have a success response, instead of alerting this response, what you should do is to show that modal first of all. Let's start with that, and I'm going to Ctrl S, and let's see what's going to happen. Let's test this out. I'm going to refresh this, and let's make a search. So I'm going to say dog, and say make a search, and let's see what's going to happen. Okay, so we're not getting our modal first. Okay, nice, perfect, we are getting it now. So this is what is going to happen. Now I'm just going to take away the alert response. I'm going to comment this out. We don't need that. And let's try it again. Let's try something else, and I'm going to come over here and say hello. So whenever it gets a response from this our API here, whenever it gets a response from this our API immediately, then it triggers this alert. That's this modal. It triggers this modal immediately, right? So now let's start tweaking this modal up. Let's pass in the title of what we search, or let's pass in the word we searched, and let's pass in the content, and let's start doing stuff with this to make this more interactive. So I'm just going to close this, and I'm going to come over here, and now to pass in a title, let's go to the index.php. This is the title, right? So it has an ID. This is the ID now, right? So I'm just going to grab this ID. Let's just call it search ID. All right, search ID, or let's say search title. Search title makes more sense. All right, so instead of passing a modal title here, this is what we're going to do. I'm just going to grab this ID, search title, and I'm going to come over to my dictionary.js, and this is what I'm going to do. So when we get a response on sources, right, when we get a response, this is what we should do. We want to pass in this search, whatever the user search. Remember, we passed it into a variable. That's whatever I typed inside this input. We want to display it and pass it into this. We want to pass it into this modal title directly. And how do we do that? Very easy. So I'm just going to come to my dictionary.js, and I'm going to say, okay, after it has shown the modal, what is the next thing it's going to do? Let's set the value of this ID. Let's pass this search directly into it. And how do we do that? So I'm just going to use the val. I'm just going to use my dollar and type in dollar, and let's type in. So remember, it's an ID, so the selector is going to be hash, and we are going to paste in what we copied, right? The search title. Now what we're going to do then, we're going to say .val. Now this is going to accept a parameter. And what is that parameter? We are going to pass in a parameter directly. That's this search. Remember, we grabbed whatever the user input and we passed it into this variable called search. So now we are going to just copy that search and pass it into here directly. All right, so meaning that it should set the value of this search title, that's this modal title, into whatever we pass here. That's whatever the users or whatever the user input. All right, Ctrl S. Okay, let's see what happens. Let's head to our project, and I'm just going to refresh once more, and I'm going to type in dog. Let me just type in whatever. Let's type in something else. I've been using dog and hello. Let's type in I don't know, word. Let's type in dictionary, diction. Okay, I'm going to make a search and let's see what's going to happen. So it's taking a while because of the internet connection. All right, I think we have a problem. It's supposed to display, I think it's supposed to display this instead of the modal title. Let's see what went wrong. Oops, it's .html, not .val. Val is to get the value or set a value. HTML is actually to get HTML or set the HTML. So since it's an HTML, right? Remember, it's let me drag this over close by. Yeah. So remember, it's an HTML tag, which is this h1. So we want to set the HTML a new HTML property, like to superimpose the current HTML property, which is modal title. So we want to superimpose this by saying passing search into this new or into this HTML parameter. All right, I'm going to Ctrl S and let's try that. I'm sorry guys, and let's refresh. Okay, and let's say diction. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. Nice. So you can see it now, guys. You can see straight up it's passing the definition the way we want exactly. So you can see diction is up and it's no more showing that modal title. That's because we have set the HTML to show that. All right, so guys, join me in the next series as we dig deeper into this whole stuff. Okay guys, take care of yourself and do have a wonderful day. Bye guys, I love you.